João is a 19-year-old young man, tall and slim, with messy brown hair and expressive brown eyes. He grew up in a poor neighborhood where most youths his age struggle to escape poverty and a lack of opportunities. João finished high school, but his family's financial situation prevented him from pursuing higher education. He lives with his hardworking mother, Dona Teresa, who takes odd jobs as a cleaner, and his 10-year-old brother, Pedro. From an early age, João has always been ambitious. He dreams of giving his family a better life and escaping the poverty that surrounds them. The sight of his mother coming home exhausted from work every day and his brother's struggles at school due to lack of resources drive him to seek a quick solution to their problems. João wants to provide a future where they don't have to worry about bills and can live with dignity. He dreams of studying and having a successful career, but the reality of his situation forces him to look for quick and sometimes desperate solutions. João's financial needs are many and urgent. The house they live in is small and needs repairs. Food is rationed to last the whole month, and basic bills like water, electricity, and gas are a constant struggle to pay. Additionally, João wants to help his brother get a better education and relieve his mother from the need to work so much. He feels the pressure of being the man of the house, especially after their father abandoned them a few years ago, leaving them with no support. Desperate to get out of this situation, João sees money as a quick fix for all his problems. He believes that with a large sum of money, he can transform his family's life and achieve his dreams. This mindset leads him to consider options he would normally avoid, hoping for a quick and significant gain. João has a close friend, Lucas, 21, who works as a mechanic and is known for his honesty and good advice. Lucas has known João's family for years and always tries to help him stay on the right path. One afternoon, while talking at Lucas's workshop, João reveals his plan to get close to Dona Maria with the intention of marrying her to access her money. Lucas reacts with concern and disapproval. He tells João that this is a serious mistake and that playing with the feelings of an elderly and vulnerable person is dishonest and cruel. Lucas tries to make João see that there are other ways to improve his life that do not involve deceiving someone. He suggests that João continue working hard, study at night, or look for a stable job that allows for gradual growth. João is torn. On one hand, he understands the logic and morality in what Lucas says. On the other, he sees marrying Dona Maria as a unique and quick opportunity to solve all his financial problems. This conversation with Lucas plants a seed of doubt in his mind, creating an internal conflict between his desperate ambition and his moral conscience. João begins to wonder if he is really willing to cross this line for money and if the consequences will be worth it. Dona Maria is a 73-year-old lady of medium height and graceful appearance, with well-kept gray hair and blue eyes that still shine with the vitality of a life full of experiences. She lives in an old but well-kept house in a traditional neighborhood. Dona Maria has always had a special care for her garden, where colorful flowers bloom in harmony, reflecting her passion for nature. The house is decorated with classic furniture and memories of a life lived to the fullest, including old photos and objects of sentimental value. To the community around her, Dona Maria is seen as a wealthy woman. She is always well-dressed, with elegant clothes and discreet but quality accessories. Her comfortable lifestyle, including frequent trips to the local market to buy fresh and good quality products, reinforces this perception. She is a respected and beloved figure in the neighborhood, known for her generous donations to the local church and for always participating in community activities. However, few know the truth about her financial situation. In reality, Dona Maria lives on her late husband Carlos's pension, who was a former military officer. Carlos served in the army for many years, and his military pension is what sustains Dona Maria today. Although it is not a fortune, the pension allows her to live comfortably, managing her expenses wisely and saving whenever possible. Carlos was the great love of Dona Maria's life, and his death left a void that she tries to fill with her daily activities and involvement in the community. Dona Maria is a kind person, always willing to help others. She has a generous heart and a compassionate nature, making her a maternal figure to many in the community. Despite her serene appearance, Donna Maria carries a deep loneliness. Without children and with few close relatives, she spends most of her time alone, finding company only in her plants and occasional visits from neighbors or church friends. Donna Maria's past is marked by sacrifices. Growing up in a humble family, she learned early on the value of hard work and perseverance. She married Carlos when she was still young, and together they faced the challenges of a military life, with constant city changes and long periods of separation during Carlos's missions. Donna Maria sacrificed much of her personal life to support her husband and create a welcoming home despite the difficulties. Donna Maria's resilience is remarkable. She faced Carlos's loss with dignity and found ways to continue living a meaningful life. Her emotional strength and ability to find joy in small things make her an inspiring figure. Despite her loneliness, she never lost hope of finding a new reason to smile, which makes her relationship with João an unexpected opportunity to fill the void in her life. When João meets Donna Maria, he is initially attracted to the image of comfort and stability she projects. However, as he spends more time with her, João begins to see the layers of her personality, her kindness, loneliness, and history of sacrifices. This realization starts to challenge his initial intentions, planting seeds of doubt about the morality of his plan. João met Donna Maria on a rainy day, while he was on his way to a job interview that seemed like another lost opportunity. Passing by a small cafe, he noticed Donna Maria struggling to hold her umbrella against the wind. Without hesitation, João approached and offered help. Donna Maria, surprised and grateful for the unexpected kindness, accepted. From that moment on, João began to notice Donna Maria on different occasions in the neighborhood. He started greeting her politely whenever he saw her at the market or the bakery. Donna Maria, appreciating the young man's kindness, responded with a warm smile, and eventually, they started having small conversations about the weather or the day's events. One day, João noticed Donna Maria having trouble carrying her heavy shopping bags. He rushed to help her, insisting on accompanying her home. During the short walk, Donna Maria told João about her life, how her husband Carlos had served in the army, and how, despite being alone now, she tried to stay active and positive. Upon reaching Donna Maria's house, she invited João for tea as a thank you. He accepted, and during their conversation, Donna Maria talked more about her garden, her love for flowers, and her memories of Carlos. João, interested and touched by her life story, saw an opportunity to get closer to Donna Maria not just as a kind neighbor, but as someone she could trust and depend on. As the days went by, João visited Donna Maria more often. He always found an excuse to pass by her house, whether to bring fresh bread from the bakery or to help tend the garden. Donna Maria, in turn, began to look forward to João's visits, feeling less lonely each time. However, as João spent more time with Donna Maria, he started to feel a pang of guilt. Her kindness was genuine and selfless, something he did not expect to find. She treated him with almost maternal consideration, always concerned about his well-being and making sure to offer him a hot meal or a sweet she had prepared. This kindness awakened an internal conflict in João. He had approached her with the clear intention of gaining financial advantage, but now, seeing her generosity and purity, he began to question his motives. Each act of her kindness made him feel guiltier, and he started to wonder if he could really go through with his plan. Donna Maria, though independent, had difficulties with some daily tasks due to her age. João noticed this and began to offer help spontaneously and selflessly. He fixed small issues around the house, like a dripping faucet or a squeaky door, and tended the garden more frequently, planting new flowers and weeding. One day, Donna Maria mentioned that the house roof was leaking. Without a second thought, João offered to fix it. He spent an entire weekend working on the roof without asking for anything in return. Donna Maria, moved by João's help and dedication, started to see him as a true friend, someone she could trust. These small acts of help strengthened their bond. Donna Maria began sharing more of her life with João, telling stories of her past, her travels with Carlos, and the challenges they face together. João, in turn, began to see Dona Maria not just as an opportunity but as a real person with feelings and a rich life story. Realizing the depth of the bond he was forming with Dona Maria, João started to seriously reflect on his intentions. He began to question whether he was really willing to betray the trust of such a kind and lonely person, and whether the money he hoped to gain would be worth the weight of the guilt he was already feeling. This phase of the relationship between João and Dona Maria establishes deep emotional development and creates a solid foundation for the conflicts and moral dilemmas that will follow in the narrative. As the bond between João and Dona Maria strengthens, João cannot completely shake off his initial thoughts about how to financially benefit from this relationship. He observes the well-kept house, the antique furniture, and the valuable sentimental objects that Dona Maria possesses. Although he knows that her late husband's pension is not a fortune, he believes Dona Maria must have some considerable savings, perhaps set aside for old age or emergencies. João starts discreetly investigating Dona Maria's financial situation. He notices that she is quite reserved about her money, but her generosity and simple lifestyle indicate that she has some financial stability. During one of his visits, he casually mentions life insurance and retirement savings, trying to gather information without raising suspicion. Dona Maria, increasingly trusting João, mentions that Carlos, her late husband, was always careful with finances and that she feels secure with what he left behind. With this information in mind, João decides that the next step would be to marry Dona Maria. He believes that as her husband, he will have access to her finances and can secure the future he has always wanted for himself and his family. However, this decision is not made without a significant internal conflict. João feels a mixture of guilt and pragmatism as he thinks about proposing marriage to such a kind and lonely woman. After days of reflection and planning, João musters the courage. On a sunny afternoon, he takes Dona Maria to her favorite spot in the garden, a quiet corner with a wooden bench surrounded by flowers. He prepares a picnic, something she always loved. After sharing a pleasant meal and many laughs, João takes Dona Maria's hand and, with a serious expression, declares his affection for her. He talks about how her company has changed his life, how he feels happy and complete when he is with her, and ends with a sincere marriage proposal. Dona Maria, visibly moved and touched by João's words, accepts the proposal. For her, this proposal is a chance to find happiness again and to have a true companion in her later years. She believes in João's words and accepts with tears of joy in her eyes. After the engagement, João begins to face an even more intense moral dilemma. Each act of Dona Maria's kindness, each genuine smile, and each shared story weighs heavily on his conscience. He realizes that he is deceiving an extraordinarily good and lonely person, and the guilt starts to erode his determination. Despite this, João is constantly reminded of his family's financial needs. He sees his mother, Dona Teresa, working tirelessly and his brother Pedro struggling to focus on his studies due to a lack of resources. These thoughts reinforce the idea that he must do whatever it takes to ensure a better future for them. João spends sleepless nights debating with himself whether to continue with his plan. He recalls conversations with Lucas, his friend, and how he advised against this path. However, the pressure of circumstances and the hope of a quick solution to his financial problems lead him to move forward. He rationalizes that although he is deceiving Dona Maria, he can take care of her and ensure that she has a comfortable and happy life. As the wedding approaches, João gets involved in the preparations, trying to maintain the facade of a loving fiancé. He helps Dona Maria choose the dress, plans the simple ceremony at the local church, and organizes a small dinner for friends and neighbors. Each detail is a reminder of the weight of his decision, but he forces himself to believe that he is doing this for a greater cause. The wedding takes place on a sunny morning, with the church decorated with flowers from Dona Maria's garden. Friends and neighbors gather to celebrate the union, and Dona Maria is radiant in her simple but elegant white dress. João, meanwhile, tries to hide his inner turmoil, smiling and participating in the celebration. On the wedding night, after all the guests have left, João and Dona Maria sit together in the garden, now as husband and wife. João watches Dona Maria as she talks about her happiness and hope for the future. He feels a tightness in his chest, aware of the deception she lives under. Despite the weight of guilt, João decides he must continue, believing that he will find a way to care for her and his family without causing harm. This section of the narrative deepens João's moral dilemma, showing his internal struggle between ambition and conscience, and setting the stage for the conflicts and twists that will follow. After the wedding, João and Dona Maria start a new life together. To the community, they appear to be an unlikely but happy couple. Although João is still motivated by his initial intentions, he finds himself increasingly immersed in married life. He patiently waits for an opportunity to better understand Dona Maria's finances and access the life insurance he believes is his financial solution. The couple's routine is calm and filled with small daily rituals that start to create a sense of normalcy and comfort for João. They wake up early, have breakfast together, and Dona Maria often prepares elaborate meals, such as cheese and ham omelets, accompanied by fresh fruit and homemade bread. After breakfast, they take walks in the garden, where João helps take care of the flowers, watering plants, and removing weeds. These tasks, initially seen by João as mere formalities, begin to bring him a strange sense of peace. During the afternoons, João reads to Dona Maria or accompanies her on visits to the local church and community events. At night, they watch old movies together, and João finds himself genuinely interested in the stories Dona Maria chooses. As he engages in these activities, João keeps a constant watch over Dona Maria's health and financial habits. He becomes more attentive to the papers she keeps and their conversations about money. João hopes that eventually, an opportunity will arise to discover more about the life insurance and other assets Dona Maria might have. One afternoon, while Dona Maria and João are organizing the attic, she finds an old wooden box full of memories. Curious, she decides to share these memories with João. The box contains old photographs, military medals, love letters, and diaries that Carlos, her late husband, wrote during his time in the army. Dona Maria begins narrating her life with Carlos. She talks about how they met at a dance when they were young and how Carlos, with his military uniform and confident demeanor, won her over. She tells stories of how, during Carlos's years of service, they faced long periods of separation but always kept their love alive through letters. João listens attentively, visualizing the sacrifices and dedication that marked their relationship. Reading the letters and seeing the photos of a young Carlos in uniform, João begins to feel a deep empathy for Dona Maria. He realizes she is not just a wealthy widow, but a woman who lived intensely and faced many adversities. The medals and diaries reveal a courageous and loving man, and João starts to deeply respect Carlos's memory and Dona Maria's strength. This new understanding of her life with Carlos makes João see Dona Maria in a new light. He starts to appreciate her wisdom and resilience, and their bond strengthens. João finds himself helping Dona Maria not out of obligation, but from a genuine desire to be part of her life and honor Carlos's memory. However, this growing empathy also heightens João's internal conflict. He is increasingly torn between his financial goals and the growing affection and respect he has for Dona Maria. Each passing day, the guilt for his initial intentions weighs more heavily on him, and he begins to question whether he can continue with his plan without destroying the relationship he now deeply values. The story of Dona Maria and Carlos's past not only enriches the plot, but also adds layers to João's moral complexity. He is caught between his ambition and the emotional reality of his relationship with Dona Maria, setting the stage for future decisions and twists in the narrative. Several months after the wedding, Dona Maria begins to show signs of fatigue and indisposition. Initially, João does not realize the seriousness of the situation, attributing the discomfort to her old age. However, when Dona Maria starts to lose weight rapidly and has difficulty performing simple tasks, João insists on taking her to the doctor. At the doctor's office, After a series of tests, the doctor reveals that Dona Maria has a serious illness, an advanced form of cancer. The news is a devastating blow to both of them. Dona Maria, despite the sadness, maintains a dignified and courageous attitude. João, on the other hand, is consumed by a mixture of fear and guilt. He realizes that time is running out and that the reality of the situation is more serious than he imagined. One night, while they are sitting in the garden under the starry sky, Dona Maria asks João to talk about the future. With a soft but firm voice, she tells João that she knows their time together may be shorter than they expected and that she needs to ensure he knows the whole truth about her financial situation. She begins by explaining that, contrary to what many believe, she does not have a large fortune. She reveals that the comfort in which she lives comes mainly from Carlos's military pension, who was a respected and decorated officer. The pension, though sufficient for a dignified life, is not a wealth that can guarantee João and his family's financial security forever. She mentions that with her advanced illness, the savings she has will be used for the necessary medical care, leaving little after her departure. For João, this revelation is a shock. He had imagined that Dona Maria had hidden wealth that could solve all his financial problems, but now he sees he was mistaken. What remains is a simple and painful truth. Dona Maria lived with modesty and care, sustained by the love and work of her late husband. After Dona Maria's revelation, João is struck by a crisis of conscience. The guilt that had been growing inside him reaches an unbearable point. He realizes that everything he has done, the approach, the marriage, was based on a lie that is now unraveling. The kindness, trust, and love of Dona Maria, which he has come to truly value, make him feel like the worst of traitors. João spends sleepless nights reflecting on his choices. He remembers Lucas's warnings, Dona Maria's stories of sacrifice, and the purity of the love she and Carlos shared. He realizes that his actions not only betrayed Dona Maria, but also dishonored Carlos's memory. He begins to question his own morality and integrity. João sees that the path he chose, driven by greed and desperation, did not bring the peace he expected, but rather an unbearable weight on his conscience. He thinks about his mother and brother, about the values they always taught him, and realizes he is failing not only Dona Maria but also his own family. Driven by guilt and the need for redemption, João decides he must do something to make amends for his mistakes. He starts caring for Dona Maria with genuine dedication, putting aside his own interests. João accompanies her to all her medical appointments, ensures she is comfortable, and does everything to make her remaining days filled with love and care. João finally decides he needs to confess the truth to Dona Maria. He chooses a moment when they are both in the garden, the place that has always brought peace and connection to them. With tears in his eyes, João opens his heart and tells everything. His initial intentions, the guilt he feels, and how everything changed upon truly getting to know her. Dona Maria, though surprised and saddened by the revelation, sees the sincerity in João's eyes. She knows he has changed and is now truly remorseful. With profound wisdom and kindness, which has always been her hallmark, Dona Maria forgives João, telling him that everyone makes mistakes and that the most important thing is to learn from them and change for the better. From that moment on, the relationship between João and Dona Maria is renewed. João decides to dedicate himself to caring for her not out of interest, but out of love and respect. He finds a new purpose in his life, to honor Dona Maria's kindness and make the most of the time they have left. This phase of the narrative deepens the character's emotional complexity, especially João's, and sets the stage for redemption and personal transformation, preparing the ground for the story's conclusion. Some months after the wedding, Dona Maria starts to show signs of fatigue and indisposition. Initially, João does not realize the seriousness of the situation, attributing the discomfort to her age. However, when Dona Maria starts to lose weight rapidly and has difficulty performing simple tasks, João insists on taking her to the doctor. At the doctor's office, after a series of tests, the doctor reveals that Dona Maria has a serious illness, an advanced form of cancer. The news is a devastating blow to both of them. Dona Maria, despite the sadness, maintains a dignified and courageous attitude. João, on the other hand, is consumed by a mixture of fear and guilt. He realizes that time is running out and that the reality of the situation is more serious than he imagined. One night, while they are sitting in the garden under the starry sky, Dona Maria asks João to talk about the future. With a soft but firm voice, she tells João that she knows their time together may be shorter than they expected and that she needs to ensure he knows the whole truth about her financial situation. She begins by explaining that, contrary to what many believe, she does not have a large fortune. She reveals that the comfort in which she lives comes mainly from Carlos's military pension, who was a respected and decorated officer. The pension, though sufficient for a dignified life, is not a wealth that can guarantee João and his family's financial security forever. She mentions that with her advanced illness, the savings she has will be used for the necessary medical care, leaving little after her departure. For João, this revelation is a shock. He had imagined that Dona Maria had hidden wealth that could solve all his financial problems, but now he sees he was mistaken. What remains is a simple and painful truth. Dona Maria lived with modesty and care, sustained by the love and work of her late husband. After Dona Maria's revelation, João is struck by a crisis of conscience. The guilt that had been growing inside him reaches an unbearable point. He realizes that everything he has done, the approach, the marriage, was based on a lie that is now unraveling. The kindness, trust, and love of Dona Maria, which he has come to truly value, make him feel like the worst of traitors. João spends sleepless nights reflecting on his choices. He remembers Lucas's warnings, Dona Maria's stories of sacrifice, and the purity of the love she and Carlos shared. He realizes that his actions not only betrayed Dona Maria, but also dishonored Carlos's memory. He begins to question his own morality and integrity. João sees that the path he chose, driven by greed and desperation, did not bring the peace he expected but rather an unbearable weight on his conscience. He thinks about his mother and brother, about the values they always taught him, and realizes he is failing not only Dona Maria but also his own family. Driven by guilt and the need for redemption, João decides he must do something to make amends for his mistakes. He starts caring for Dona Maria with genuine dedication, putting aside his own interests. João accompanies her to all her medical appointments, ensures she is comfortable, and does everything to make her remaining days filled with love and care. João finally decides he needs to confess the truth to Dona Maria. He chooses a moment when they are both in the garden, the place that has always brought peace and connection to them. With tears in his eyes, João opens his heart and tells everything. His initial intentions, the guilt he feels, and how everything changed upon truly getting to know her. Dona Maria, though surprised and saddened by the revelation, sees the sincerity in João's eyes. She knows he has changed and is now truly remorseful. With profound wisdom and kindness, which has always been her hallmark, Dona Maria forgives João, telling him that everyone makes mistakes and that the most important thing is to learn from them and change for the better. From that moment on, the relationship between João and Dona Maria is renewed. João decides to dedicate himself to caring for her not out of interest, but out of love and respect. He finds a new purpose in his life, to honor Dona Maria's kindness and make the most of the time they have left. This phase of the narrative deepens the character's emotional complexity, especially João's, and sets the stage for redemption and personal transformation, preparing the ground for the story's conclusion. Following the conversation about the military pension, João still feels compelled to fully understand Dona Maria's financial situation. He needs to know exactly what they are dealing with, especially now that he is determined to care for her with genuine intention. One afternoon, while organizing Dona Maria's documents, she hands him an old wooden box containing her savings and the details of her financial planning. Opening the box, João finds several important papers. Among them are bank statements, savings bond certificates, and some modest stocks. He spends hours analyzing the documents, only to realize that, contrary to what he had imagined, there is no million-dollar life insurance policy. Instead, Donna Maria has only modest savings, accumulated over the years with much caution and sacrifice. This discovery deeply shocks João. He realizes that all his expectations of finding an easy financial solution were based on a wrong assumption. The reality is that Donna Maria, despite living comfortably, is not wealthy. Her tranquil life was sustained by Carlos's pension and the small savings she made over the years. With the box still open on the table, Donna Maria, sitting beside João, holds his hand firmly and looks deeply into his eyes. She then reveals something João never expected to hear. She knew about his intentions from the beginning. Donna Maria, with her life experience and wisdom, realized that João approached her with ulterior motives. Donna Maria explains that despite knowing João's plans, she saw something more in him than just greed. She saw a desperate and lost young man, but also saw the potential for kindness and growth. She decided to give him a chance, hoping that, over time and with love, he could change and find a more honest and dignified path. Donna Maria recounts how, during the early days of their relationship, she observed João carefully. She noticed how he struggled with guilt and conscience and how, gradually, he began to genuinely care for her. This transformation confirmed her decision to trust him despite his initial intentions. Hearing these words, João feels an overwhelming wave of emotions. He feels ashamed, regretful, and deeply touched by Donna Maria's wisdom and generosity. He realizes she saw beyond his mistakes and believed in his potential to change. João is confronted by the harsh reality of his actions. He sees that his pursuit of material wealth was short-sighted and selfish, and that, in fact, true wealth had always been within his reach. Love, respect, and genuine human connection. He understands that Donna Maria, with her kindness and wisdom, gave him something that no money could buy, a second chance to be a better person. Moved by this revelation, João decides to radically change his path. He commits to caring for Donna Maria with all the dedication and love she deserves. He spends his time and energy ensuring she is comfortable and happy. João also looks for ways to improve his financial situation through honest means, such as securing a stable job and continuing his studies at night. This revelation and João's subsequent transformation create a new balance in their relationship. They build a relationship based on mutual respect and gratitude. João learns that true wealth lies in the bonds we form and the actions we take to care for one another. He feels more fulfilled and at peace, knowing that despite his mistakes, he had the chance to change and make a difference in an extraordinary person's life. The revelation of Donna Maria about her true intentions and the trust she placed in him profoundly shakes João. He spends days reflecting on his choices, actions, and their impact not only on his life, but also on Donna Maria's. Understanding that he was seen from the beginning, but still accepted and loved, changes his perspective completely. João feels overwhelmed by a mix of shame and gratitude. The shame for his greedy intentions and the relief of knowing that despite everything, Donna Maria saw something good in him. This new outlook on life leads him to reevaluate his values and priorities. He realizes that the pursuit of material wealth is empty compared to the value of true relationships and mutual respect. Determined to honor Donna Maria's trust, João decides to radically change his path. He begins looking for an honest job that can support him and his family without resorting to dishonest means. After several weeks of searching, he finds a job as an administrative assistant in a small local company. Although the salary is not high, it is enough to help him maintain a modest and honorable life. At the same time, João dedicates himself to caring for Donna Maria with all the affection and attention she deserves. He accompanies her to all her medical appointments, ensures she is comfortable, and does everything to make her days filled with love and care. He also decides to transform Donna Maria's house into an even more welcoming place. He repairs old furniture, paints faded walls, and tends the garden with new passion. The house becomes a symbol of his renewed commitment to a life of honesty and hard work. Joao's transformation does not go unnoticed by the community. The neighbors, who initially suspected his intentions, begin to see the sincerity of his dedication. They come together to offer help, from meals to company for Dona Maria when Joao is working. The community becomes a fundamental support, demonstrating the power of solidarity and respect. During this period of change, Joao reflects deeply on his motives and the consequences of his actions. He realizes that greed led him down dark and destructive paths, nearly destroying a valuable relationship and causing pain to an innocent person. However, he also understands that it is possible to change and redeem oneself, that his future actions can correct past mistakes. Joao and Dona Maria's story becomes a powerful lesson about greed, honesty, and the true nature of wealth. Joao learns that true wealth is not measured by money or material goods, but by relationships, mutual respect, and the ability to care for and love others. He sees that the simple and dignified life Dona Maria lived, based on honesty and love, is much more valuable than any material fortune. In the last years of Dona Maria's life, Joao dedicates himself to ensuring she lives with dignity and happiness. They share moments of joy, sadness, and reflection, creating memories that Joao will carry forever. When Dona Maria finally passes away, Joao feels deep sorrow but also immense gratitude for having had the opportunity to know her and learn from her. After Dona Maria's death, Joao decides to continue living according to the values he learned. He maintains Dona Maria's blooming garden as a tribute to her memory and continues to help his community, giving back the kindness and support he received. He also reconciles with his family, using his experience as an example of how honesty and hard work can transform lives. Joao and Dona Maria's story leaves a lasting message. True wealth is not measured by money, but by the positive impact we leave on others' lives and the legacy of love, respect, and honesty we build over time. Joao becomes a living testament that despite past mistakes, it is always possible to change, grow, and find the true essence of wealth in the simplicity and kindness of the human heart. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a like and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support is essential to us. And now, an exciting new story is coming up on your screen.